Welcome back to the Box Through Path show, where we delve deep into the decisions that shape our careers and lives, shedding light on the paths less traveled and the unconventional choices that lead to success. I am your host, Dheeraj Naraharisetti, and in this episode, we continue our exploration into the intricate balance between education, career aspirations, and the personal sacrifices that come with them. In our last session, we ventured into the world of medicine and the rigorous journey of medical education with insights from Dr. Gordon Chiu and aspiring Dr. Alex Hwang. They shared their experiences and the critical decisions that aspiring medical professionals must navigate. Today, we push the boundaries of this discussion even further. In this episode, we are diving into a broader conversation about the true cost of education, not just in financial terms, but also in the currency of time and missed opportunities. We will explore the daunting question that haunts many of us. What do you want to be when you grow up? Please enjoy this episode.
What do you want to be when you grow up? Right? Isn't that so true, right? So I'll throw in some answers into here for consideration is I don't want to be poor. I don't want to lose all of my time in my 20s or possibly 30s. I don't want to have any regrets. I don't want to have missed out on the time with my friends because, if you go and study a lot, you are, when people are out there, you've been studying for a lot already. If you're a 17-year-old, you have, we can do that calculation, by the way. So do you, like, how many hours do you spend in school? Like, what time do you wake up to go to school right now, both of you?
I wake up at 5 every day.
That's a good number. If you want to be competitive, you should wake up at 5 every day. That's true. So now, from 5 to 5 p.m., you're essentially now going to have spent 12 hours, right?
Mhm.
And do you sleep at 5 or what happens to give me a normal day for you, school day?
Um, so usually I try to go to sleep at 10:30 at the latest,
Mm-hmm.
to get at least 7 hours every night.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, a normal day would probably be 10:30 p.m. to 5 a.m. in
Mm-hmm.
terms of sleep.
Okay, so 7 hours of the sleep.
Hmm.
I'm sure you have to go to the bathroom, you have to take a shower, you got to do those things. And that's a distraction, by the way, right? Because, you want to have your maximum efficiency from 5 a.m. all the way to 10:30. But let's just assume that 2 hours was spent in the combination of eating, showering, cleaning, right? So then we deduct that from let's say 10 or 2.5 hours to make an even number. So we have 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. is 12 hours, and then plus 3 more hours. So you have 15 hours of focus, right? Okay.
Hmm.
And you do that 5 days a week, right? All right. I'm not going to discuss your weekends. I'm just going to think 5 days a week. And just for ease of calculation, we are just going to assume that there are, let's say, 4 weeks, let's say 2 weeks during the year where it doesn't happen. So we have an even number. We use 50. All right. And so that becomes your total number of hours in a year, which is 3,750. And and so that times 4 years gives you 15,000 hours. Now, obviously, you're going to spend time on your weekends and perhaps somehow, so the number is higher than this, but you're also going to maybe take more than 2 weeks in a year. So the number might go down a little bit, but nevertheless, 15,000. Would you agree, Alex and Niraj, that this is an okay number for us to use?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you may have heard of the book 10,000 Hour Rule.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So which allows you then to be known as a world expert of something if you focus 10,000 hours. So so you have 15,000 hours, which is a conservative number because we know you study on the weekends. We know that you're competitive, and you're constantly working on this. What How do you feel like what kind of expert are you after 15,000 hours? in these 4
Pretty
years.
good expert.
Yeah.
They're very, very smart in that subject.
Yeah. So, but are you an expert of, what are you an expert of right now? You spent 15,000 hours. Hmm.
Uh,
Mm.
that's a good question.
Yeah. You don't feel like an expert, do you?
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Mm.
You don't feel
No,
like an
that,
expert. So is the 10,000 hour rule wrong? Right? There must be some flaw in the discussion, right? Because you really spent 15,000 hours. Now, not everybody wakes up at 5, so they're going to have fewer hours than you. And I mentioned 5 a.m. is a great time because there's like nobody's up and you have that very zen moment of doing this and you've been so focused. So
Mhm.
focusing 10,000 hours does make you an expert. That's where all the research talked about, and that's what led to the book. But on a scatterbox of things or on the wrong things, on a bunch of tasks that may have been unrelated for now, maybe a problem, right?
Mhm.
And you feel that problem. Um, so you have to sort out how important it is. Now, on our last podcast, the very first one with Dheeraj,
Mhm.
he asked me some things, and I talked about getting into a top school
Mhm.
will actually raise your base pay,
Mhm.
right? And why is base pay so important? Because base pay is calculated, like your higher your base pay, when you get a bonus, it's a percentage of your base pay. So it's kind of affect things, right? We didn't talk about that on that show. But then, did you know that the next job you get, they're going to ask you what your base pay was in your last company?
Oh.
And that will determine, wow, if their base pay was too low, there might be something wrong with him, wow, or her. So we're not going to hire them. So to be
Oh.
competitive, you have to like have a higher base rate. Wait a minute. So that's connected with those top 10 schools
Mhm.
that get one standard deviation higher.
Mhm.
Maybe you're not really also good, but because you attended that top school, maybe you took a break in like, while you're in college and maybe you weren't as focused, but because the crowd, there's like other people who are really focused in that team. They're like all really focused that you kind of like are able to slip by. And I use the example of non-branded underwear. No one knows whether you have branded or non-branded underwear because they can't see your underwear. So you kind of
Mhm.
slip by. But if you don't get to one of those places, then you're at the median, right? You're at the
Mhm.
median level. In some schools, are one standard deviation below the median. So that kind of affects things. But you were asking me, Alex, about medical school. So
Mhm.
medical school means what you're going to do to go to college is to throw away your high school diploma, which you spent 15,000 hours in these 4 years. Now, the crazy part about it is you wouldn't be able to just do your 4 years without the prior 2 years in middle school and the prior 6 years of elementary school, right? So all of that,
Mhm.
6 plus 2, those other 8 years add to your 4 years. So now you spent 12 years and definitely more than 15,000 hours. And you're going to about to throw it all away because you're not going to use your high school diploma to make any money, right? Because you're going to go to
Mhm.
college, right? So to make money during high school, the high school diploma gets you $30,000 a year. And that's times four because you're going to spend 4 years not working.
Mhm.
So that's $120,000 you're going to throw away of earning power.
Ooh.
You're going to borrow money for 4 years, or maybe you don't, right? But even if
Mhm.
someone's paying for it, you should account for it. So some college, if we use 30,000 per year in college, then that would be that's an easy way to calculate. That's all, right? So 30,000 times 4 years is 120,000, and 30,000 times 4 years of not working, right, is another 120,000. So basically, by the time you graduate, whether it's 21 or 22, you will be in the hole of $240,000 with a college degree.
Mhm.
Choose medical school, you will not get that earning power of 60,000 average salary per year. That's just average. There are people and degrees and fields of study that go above the median and above the mean. But you're going to go and not work, so that you can, or you can work, and you might
Mhm.
work for 2, 3 years. I work for 3, and then you're going to stop, and others are going to continue, and then you're going to go and take on the debt.
Mhm.
Um, and then if you, and because I shared with you, being ordinary might not be what you want, because no one wants, who wants to be ordinary, right? So you then go
Mhm.
and say, oh wow, look, I can be extraordinary by doing some of these other deeper studies. And now you keep digging a deeper and deeper hole, right?
Mhm.
So
Wait,
there's a,
so Dr. Chu,
yeah.
so branching off of like the whole being extraordinary,
Mm,
and so for people who do want to, um, for people who do want to pursue like longer educational paths like medical school and
mhm,
also want to like make money along the way,
mm.
um so when you said that, I immediately thought of like, having like a side gig or like start your own business kind of deal.
Bingo.
And so how
Yeah.
would you suggest, or what advice would you give to people who want to try and attempt that kind of thing like now or in their college years?
Not people sh need to do that. They should do that. That's absolutely, like, why can't you have your cake and eat it too? Why
Mhm.
can't you parallel, right? So that you don't, like, what happens if you don't finish medical school,
Mhm.
right? That's like crazy. We didn't even talk about that, right? What happens
Mhm.
if you suddenly um have a Zuckerberg moment and you don't finish college? Right. Right. So you don't have those moments if you don't do any side gigs. And
Mhm.
the word gig, right, in the term of gig economy, is where you could be driving an Uber,
Mhm.
and have all the freedom. I mean, some hours, if I mean, if you have to, you have to do what you got to do. And people, what the gig economy has allowed is you can exactly do the exploration of making your time worth something.
Mhm.
You know who's doing that all the time? It's people who are artists and musicians. They would do that. They would bus tables, they would do other things, they would do other gigs while they were waiting for their big break,
Oh.
right? So
Mhm.
why can't we do that now? And we are doing that now. That's why the gig economy is so powerful. This is why in your generation it's so exciting, because you can explore and you should explore
Mhm.
doing more things, because you shouldn't think of things serially. And now that you've taken physics, hopefully they did teach you about circuits and things like that, is you know
Yeah.
the word, right? You
Mhm.
know the word parallel, you know the word serial. Um, and serial means, sequentially one after the other.
Mhm.
That's bad, because you can never go back in time. You should parallel exactly what you're saying. That
Mhm.
do more, because can't go back to your 20s. In fact, you can't get back to your teens. Aren't there so many things you wish you did when you were 12, but you just, you turn 13, so you're no longer 12.
Mhm.
Honestly, like I
Huh?
wish I had started learning how to code when I was 12 because like by now I would be like a god at it.
So coding.
Yeah.
I went and learned coding when I was 48 years old. I'm now 50,
Hmm.
at Harvard University. And I wasn't learning just to code. I produced some terrible codes because I have not, like, the last programming language I learned was C++, plus plus, right? And that was at Rensselaer back in 1994. I entered in 92. So so in my second year, I had to take computer science.
Hmm.
It was already like really foreign. Hello World, right? I just
Yeah.
didn't like, why did you have to
Mhm.
pick Hello World of all things? That's just like, I kept asking that for a while. But then in Python, um, they mentioned Hello World again. So there we are, you know, and but then with at H, I saw what they took me through, which is like breathing through a fire hose, learning the value behind. They took us through a journey from Excel sheets to SQL, where, some people don't have last names, like Madonna doesn't have a last name. What do you do? Like you have to go in there and edit it out, or SQL allows you to streamline that, and then Python takes it to another level, and then there's machine learning. Oh, wow. Neural networks. Oh,
Mm,
yeah. And then deep learning.
mhm.
And then there's like, isn't the world is so going so fast, and AI makes it go so much faster, right? There's going to be 40% of jobs, the normal jobs are
Yeah.
going to be eliminated just from the advent of artificial intelligence 1.0. What happens as it goes to 2.0? What happens as the robots form, as opposed to a robotic arm that reaches out and just pumps your gas for you?
Oof.
There- right? There's going to be massive collisions in the world. Plus, we'll have, as you read in the papers, we have all kinds of weather effects. I don't like to call it global warming because we don't really know if it's going to be warmer or colder, but weather effects, right? We just have some
Mhm.
weather effects. And also, as more people drive electric vehicles, they're going to be charging. And are those transformers at the end of your streets, those things that are on these wooden sticks, and can they handle that capacity if everybody was charging?
No.
Mm-mm.
Huh. So
Yeah.
what happens if they can't? Maybe they get hot. Maybe there's fires that show up. You know,
Oh.
well, and wait a minute. If we have weather effects, how correlated is that to viruses that show up? Did you know there's a new type of yeast that's out there? It's instead of Candida albicans, which is a common vaginal yeast infection,
Mhm.
there's something called Candida auris. And look that up, AURIS. It's on the CDC website. It's some like new species of yeast that attacks people when they go into hospitals when they're immune deficient. So, and our drugs don't really work well for it. That's a new one, right? But that you don't learn in bio class in in high school or college
Yeah.
usually.
Mhm.
So but worth it to look at it. So the world is filled with information. The internet, you can learn anything.
Mhm.
Now learning something accurately is a whole nother story because there's so much information that
Mhm.
if you just learn from the internet, you might start thinking a dog is a cat and a cat is a mouse. There's all kinds of issues because it's unregulated. But if you knew enough about the information, then you could combine through regulated learning and learning how to learn,
Mhm.
and then be associated with buddies, right? Like this conversation. You guys go to the same high school, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah. So look what this conversation, how did we have this conversation today? Because Dheeraj, you met me at a Princeton event.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so you're a go-getter, right? You're going there and you meet people who are also go-getters,
Mhm.
and we all come together. Well, that's why you have to get to a great place. Um,
Mhm.
but at the great place, because none of us know anything when we're undergrads,
Yeah.
we're really right. We really, it's like the blind leading the blind, but we all have passionate, right? We all had to
Mhm.
clear certain things, and then we're going to be like vectors, right? In physics, you have vectors, but they're
Mhm.
all going to be in so many different dimensions, and some of them cancel each other out. So it's just going to be a mess, and it has been a mess for many years. But at least these are vectors that have certain potential to them, right? So like a high PE value, potential energy,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you don't convert it into the right kinetic energy, the right path,
Mhm.
and then you run into the world of what you just asked, which is some degrees don't have don't have good outcomes, right? Some,
Mhm.
we're very dispersed, and some people say do what you like. Well, if you follow that, what if what I like doesn't lead to what I want? Oh, that's interesting. And then, okay, do what I like then. All right. So
Yeah.
do what your parents like. Well, wait a minute, they're not me. So if I do what they like, and then what if it doesn't lead to the response I want? What if it doesn't lead to the response they want? What do they know? So you start asking these questions, which is a great discussion, is why do you want why do you want, well, me to do this? Or why do I want to do this? And you have
Mm.
to then ask that question deeply. Um, because there's a limited amount of time. You actually won't have and you won't want to spend. Um, that's why they call it K through 12. So it's easy. You don't really want to spend another 12 years after high school, do you?
No, no.
No, definitely not.
No. No. Okay. So you don't want to spend another 12 years, but you have to go 18 plus 12 if you're going to specialize in something. But what happens if you're in Bangladesh and you say, well, definitely, are there a lot of specialists? Right. So you
Mhm.
suddenly say, well, not if you don't pay me more. So human beings, right, generally want to be, if you're going to make this time commitment, you want to be paid for it. So there is some correlation about payment and those other things, but there are like it really gets you bent out of shape. And I'll give you some data sets around people who post getting out of medicine, right, medical school,
Yeah.
and they run into a life event where they watched the people that they really wanted to be with, but they got chosen already. So that's one life event. Very depressing, by the way. It's very
Yeah.
impacting.
Mhm.
Another one is they're at the hospital because of the profession and they need to work at a hospital. Their profession of specialty doesn't allow them to open a practice. Now, family doctor allows you to do that, but imagine if you were brain surgeon. You're not going to open up a shop and say, "Come to my place." So you're associated with the hospital. Now, because of all the competition and how human nature is, you watch someone else who's not as good as you get promoted. Meanwhile, you have your higher salary, so everything gets normalized. That's how we are. Our body functions on this homeostasis, right? So we have, we think about our environment and we're inside of our environment, and then we watch and see others through politics or relationships. Someone just likes someone more, and they get promoted, and you don't. It's bound to happen to someone. There's only one valedictorian of every class. So, so then
Yeah.
the one that suffers the most, like if you were a number four, you got no problems. Number 15, no problems. But number two, oh my goodness. Do you know how close it was? And you could have been valedictorian. It would have been you, but now you're not. So now, that impact it needs to be considered in our decision making of the more we have the perfect key to our own hearts and ourselves and our soul. We have the perfect key, the master key. And then you give the copy of the key to somebody else, of course, those who you respect, those who you love, and they also have a key that affects you. Not so much as the master key. So that's why you can always change your locks. And at the same time, changing the locks is like a lot of work and you could get hurt. So that's why it hurts so much when you give your a copy of a key and you have to then change your lock. So I'm just telling you some really general things, but also at the same time sprinkling certain specificities in there and then saying the true answer is what I talk about at Harvard, which is the show's title is called Calling All Explorers. Because Jack Ma, the one we know who he is, would not be the founder of Alibaba if he
Mhm.
didn't explore doing that. In fact, he actually was, didn't he explore being a high school teacher and other things? But
I'm
he
pretty sure you
also,
worked at McDonald's too, but was
yeah.
about the guy.
Right. So yeah, so but what if he didn't do any of those and he just listened to his mother and
Yeah.
said, the Jack Ma that we don't know, and his mother says, go work at Apple's factory. Make me proud so I'll continue to play mahjong. You make me proud. You become the head in the factory of 100 workers. Yeah, that's the other Jack Ma we've never learned about. What about Bob Dylan? Bob Dylan, who went and did cover songs instead of writing songs. We wouldn't have known Bob Dylan for who he is. So when you
Mhm.
choose the path of exploiting yourself, which is LinkedIn, by the way. In LinkedIn, you put all your skills in there. Oh, look, I can do Microsoft Office. Hire me, hire me. And you get hired. The fortunate few will get hired, and then you have given up your best hours. Pick me, pick me.
working for some other
Hmm?
like
Yeah.
I said, like working for some corporation.
Well, corporations, that worked for some.
Hmm.
But with the gig economy, why does the gig economy even exist? Why do some people freelance and also do some work on the side? Because they're explorers. They really are, right? They are working on their magic potions. And
Mm.
money is just something they do to get by because they know that their true value is higher than that. And of the gig economy workers, there are groups that are, I'm not talking about using the Fivers and those types of things to get some side jobs. I'm talking about the ones who are also entrepreneurial and they start viewing the ordinary stuff as really ordinary and they believe that they are extraordinary. Now, there has to be a distinction between believing um, and also just crazy think, right? So they're just thinking they are, but they're not, right? So how do you find that out? And this interview is exactly how you get practice on this, is to start having these deep conversational thoughts about
Hmm.
how to elevate
Mm.
yourself so that you're not taking all your 15,000 hours. Like, how did you spend so many hours?
In reality, wasted so much in
Yeah.
school.
Oh,
Not
didn't you get
like
an A in the class? Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
right. You got a lot of A's. Do you know that all those A's are going to be deleted and not count towards your college GPA? Yeah.
Yeah.
You start over again, right?
Mhm.
Hopefully what you've learned translates to an A. Now, can you try testing that experiment is to not study in your sophomore year or junior year, but take the A's that you did when you were freshman year and said, since you have all that, say you had, an unweighted GPA of a 4.0, and so everything was perfect. And don't study. In fact, if you study, we have to penalize you. So we have to, if you were going to get 100, we have to lower it by 20 points because you studied. So not allowed to study, right? You can only learn while the teacher's talking. So everybody's, is handicapped the same way. And only those who can learn based on what the teacher was saying, hopefully the teacher's saying good things, right? But
Mm.
are relevant things to the test that we're going to nationally test you on. But you're not allowed to study at home. You're not allowed to add any extra things. All right. So, or you get points deducted. And then we ran that experiment. Does your freshman year, ninth grade, allow you to, that 4.0, allow you to then, and 4.0, getting that ninth grade, you could do any method you want. Just when you get to 10th grade and 11th grade, you're not allowed to use any homework time, at home
Yeah.
time. All right. So you
Mm.
understand the experiment. Then
Mm.
we go and check. Did the 4.0 GPA capability lead you to be able to get an A in these other classes? And you find out the answer is no, right? It doesn't. I mean, there's some relationships, but the correlation isn't so um, direct, right? And like you need to know the algebra, you need to know certain things, but it's not like that. So what happens in college? It's not like that. So guess what? What school is, right? School and education is really largely that. It is highly uncorrelated to making money, to developing a good life, to who you marry or divorce, right? Whether or
Yeah.
not you have children, how long you might live, right? These are things that are not correlated, right? There might be some relationship, but it's not a cause effect kind of thing, right? So the correlation may not be high in certain things. It's kind of like potholes. We get potholes in New Jersey, Maryland, New York, Boston, possibly because of the snow and the salt. But why are there potholes in Texas, California, right? Arizona? They don't get, yeah, but there's even potholes in Hawaii. So they're
Mm.
everywhere. And so a good life, not everyone has it. Everybody wants it. What is the secret? And the secret is to keep asking deep questions amongst those who want to ask these deep questions and start thinking about, yeah, it does make sense that
Huh.
if I don't use what I learned, then I might end up being like everyone else because like your 15,000 hours, how do you not waste that? because you did spend it, right? But you're going to have a high chance of wasting it.
I think we spent it
Those,
aimlessly, like
well,
very aimlessly
it was
spending
also
it.
required, right? So you have,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
wouldn't have spent the 15,000 hours in like partly like maybe the art class or the other thing, the choir. You might not have spent that. Now, I
Mm,
just when I was in high school, right? That's a famous phrase when I was young. You know, I just found a propensity towards public speaking that was like really important
mm,
because I just felt that, you know, explaining that stuff, I found value in doing that. And my father would say like, that's like totally useless.
Mhm.
And then I would say to him, because he's from Hong Kong, so he was the number one of a very, very competitive school called Diocesan's Boys School. So he was number one there. And he didn't get into DBS because he started there. He actually qualified to go in there. And then he was top in table tennis. He even took down the US champion when he came to the United
oh,
States. Yeah. So he tells
oh,
me these things, right? Meanwhile, I'm not the one that listens to like I don't understand it. Like, how could you be so great, but you've like lost all your powers? It's almost like Clark Kent saying to Lois Lane, I love you. And Lois is saying, no, I love Superman. Same person, right?
mm,
Hard for her to understand. It was same hard for me to understand, Dad, how come like, you tell me these stories that, that you were so good, and then you got fired 3 times in your job. Um, and wow, that stuck with me all these years. So one of the driving forces of why I'm entrepreneurial is I don't want to work 15,000 hours in high school and then, or 15,000 anywhere, anytime, and then give someone else the control over whether or not I get fired,
And the
right?
fruits are really
mm,
of those 15,000 hours.
If I blow up, I want to blow up myself, right?
mm,
Well, no matter how many hours I spent. So now we're into the entrepreneurial, the reason why, not how to be entrepreneurial. Well, you must answer the question why. And so that deep think and deep talk becomes the essence of like Bruce Lee having the 1 inch punch, right? You
mm,
need to answer why. And the answering of why comes from building community around others that also have those whys. And the practice of constantly asking why
Mhm.
makes you better, makes us all better because none of us are have the full answer why. We continue to explore how to not waste time. And 15,000 hours is a lot of time. So how do we not waste that time? Hmm. What was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
underlying theme behind my high school years? Well, just like your high school years, they made, you not me, you learn a lot of stuff, but then how can I make like, did you know if I told you every class in high school is incredibly valuable? Like the art class, incredibly valuable. The music class, incredibly valuable. And you
mm,
wonder, how is that valuable? And you look at the TED Talk, right? I
Mhm.
put the musical up there. And people felt that that was unique. It did. If you were able to take your art and music and your other ones, think about how many artists out there have made millions of dollars. I mean, how is that possible that people just give those people money, right? And they
mm,
they don't have like they're not very good in physics and other things. Um, but then you have the physicists and you have the exception of those. Could you get a hybridization of those fields? Possibly,
oh,
right? Imagine
yeah.
if you did that, right? Yeah. Did you know that I just came out of a show where we're talking about fission. And
Mm,
fission is not F-I, and then you say it fast, it sounds like fission in physics. And I'm doing that on purpose, but it's actually frisson.
Mhm.
So frisson, Frisson, is a sensation you can get. Some people get it very frequently, and it's an extremely intriguing emotional response to sound or music, and that you can get even goosebumps on your skin. And that when you create songs that are bittersweet and it causes frisson, that frisson can actually induce wound healing and deep healing within the body.
Oh.
Wow, now we're traversing into medicine. So say someone is in an Olympic athlete and they need to recover fast enough so that they can now go and compete again when they have the next Olympics. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
oh,
Mm.
there's value. Wow, value creation through combining music, the understanding of the science, the biology. They're not talking about fission in high school or college biology. And yet you look up the word FRISSON and it exists. Wow. And it made some songs pretty popular. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Only Time became popular because people felt the frisson,
Mm.
you know.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Wow. So that's some research I'm funded on that I have
Oh,
now.
wow.
So
Wow.
That's
I have
really
funded
interesting.
research on the topic of frisson. So yeah, if you get, isn't that like really important for an MD PhD, right? To get funding, you know?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Bohemian Rhapsody causes frisson by Queen.
Mm.
Wow, that's incredible. Bruce Springsteen, born in the USA, has
Mm.
frisson.
Mhm.
Wow. So now, like, I sent it to Dheeraj, just who I was in the class with all these people who spent like 15,000 plus hours on their arts
Yeah.
and um and they sing at the Metropolitan Opera. Um and they're after the same thing. Why does this person get more of a crowd effect while the other one doesn't? And then, oh, can I use Frisian in improving how I market and advertisement to people? Do you remember you guys see the Uber ad with the girl cutting her hair and then it says and then there's a song Mama Says, right? You know,
Mm.
you might be
Yeah.
seeing that today, right? No,
Yeah.
it shows up so often, right? And it's about Uber and how high school kids can have an Uber account. Yeah, why do you think they combine music? Mama Says, something very classic, so a lot of people are gonna know that piece. And
Mm.
then with the girl cutting her hair and inducing things, they're trying to find that sweet spot of, wow, I remember that ad. I'm gonna get an Uber thing. You feel good about Uber, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
You also might have seen the ad where uh, the oil companies, right? They have some music in the background and they talk about how they're now really concerned about conservation of energy and things like that. And you see YouTube using YouTube, right? It's a tube for you, right?
Mm.
And there's a lot of music in YouTube, right? And a lot of
Yeah.
people singing and doing things. Oh, wow. So art is really powerful. This is
Mm.
worth billions of dollars, right? Yeah, I just turned that for you because it's so Asian to ask about medicine, right? And
Mm.
then, but which is fine. But what kind of medicine? What if, what if you could explore frisson in medicine?
Mm.
Johns Hopkins talks about positive psychology in health. And then the article I highlighted today was that anxiety, which is the opposite of, positive psychology, having a sense of doom can lead to having headaches, irritability, constant worrying. You can even develop breathing problems by constantly having this or high blood pressure. And so this all comes from, but how do you do that part? And when you're in medical school and you're trying to race out there and pay your debts, and so there has to be what you were describing. If you could put some gig in your gig economy in your things, then you won't have to rush. Like, it's okay, right?
Mm.
I want to explore because I've gotten all of my food taken care of, all of
Uh-huh.
my sleeping taken care of, right? All of my house payments taken care of, all my debt taken care of.
Mm.
But we went on for a long time. You might have to do another one of these.
Yeah. Thank you so
Mm.
much, Dr.
Yeah.
Chu, for
Thank you,
your
Dr. Chiu.
insights.
You're most
And
I feel
welcome.
like it really puts into light a lot of people wanting to go into medical school because like they don't know the real like the true like what they're putting themselves into. In
I
this
highly
interview,
suggest to go. But don't just go to medical school. Like,
Like
don't
know the
just
why.
get a job, right? Go
uh,
go further, right? There's
Mm.
so much more. Stop learning what's been around for 300 years. You know, three simple harmonic motion has been around for over 300 years, and now we're measuring whether or not you can get an A in the class.
yeah,
I mean,
What?
right? We need to advance as a human species. And who can do that? You can. I'm 50, right? You can do that. We wouldn't be successful as a species if all we did was have kids just relearn what's been around 300 years. And because we keep inventing new things,
I feel like it's already been done and tried. So like, what's the point in doing it again and again, going to the same physics class? You know where you're gonna end up.
you
You know
Mm.
the
need
end
to,
location.
well, you have to have the basis, but
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
Mm.
you still have to like, there's when you want to go further and discover new things, you cannot have distractions. So the distraction of debt and food and family was not something that Cavalieri had. This is the grandfather of calculus, by the way. So the grandfather of calculus, he was a Franciscan monk, Cavalieri in Italy, and he was before Isaac Newton's time. And he just, and by the way, he dies, I think, at 49. So he
Oh.
doesn't even like have all the years that you think. And then because when you get to 48 and you're about to die at 49, which we know he died at 49, it must not feel good. So he was able to discover the beginnings of calculus, the infinitesimal calculation and the derivatives in his later 20s.
Hmm.
Yeah, he didn't have any distractions. He was very
Yeah.
focused. So
Mm.
so it is not, you can pick anything. Become very focused. Get rid of the distraction. And this is the best time in the world because you could get like these side jobs that like pay your basic, so you don't have to dig the hole. Stop digging the hole. Build community like what we're doing here with Box to Path, and you become stronger just from listening to stuff like this, and it makes you think, right?
Really makes you think what you're gonna do with
Yes.
your life and how to lead it and how to spend these crucial hours
Mm.
for youth.
Hmm.
Yep. I think that's all we have for today. I think that's our time is up. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Dr. Chu and Alex, for coming on and giving your insights.
you're welcome.
Mm.
Yep.
But thank you so much, Dr. Chiu, for your time.
You're very welcome.